Gregory House is a pill-popping sociopath who treats human life like a crossword puzzle, yet he's one of the most beloved characters in all of television. Velma Dinkley, on the other hand, is a meta-obsessed, self-aware intellectual with a mystery-solving habit, and the internet wants her publicly executed. They are fundamentally the same archetype, but one is a television god, and the other is a digital pariah. And no, this isn't a case of the internet hates women. It's more of a math problem, really. This is the asshole equation, a narrative extortion scheme where every second your lead isn't a saint, you owe the audience a debt. The first payment on this narrative debt is humor. In this transaction, a joke is meant to be much more than just to elicit a laugh. It's also a bribe. In the asshole equation, humor is the currency that buys a character's right to exist. A regular protagonist starts with a clean state. A jerk, on the other hand, starts in a state of narrative bankruptcy. Every second they spend being a prick, the writer is bleeding audience goodwill. To close the wound, you have to make massive deposits of dopamine. If your lead is going to be an abrasive narcissist, their wit must be sharp enough for the audience to justify them being a jerk. This is where Velma's math fails. She's trying to pay a high-stakes debt with counterfeit currency. Take the pilot's opening monologue. Velma looks through the lens and spends 60 seconds lecturing you on why your taste in media is a problem. She frames the origin story trope as a burden for men and a spiral into insanity for women, then dismisses the rest of the Scooby-Doo legacy as Fred and his weird sex van. This is narrative theft. Velma is claiming high status authority over a franchise we already love without providing a single second of value first. In the asshole equation is the equivalent of borrowing a massive sum of money from a friend and immediately spending it on a billboard that calls them an idiot. The writers are hiding behind her like a human shield, believing that if they mock the tropes of origin stories, it will somehow make their own mediocre writing look intentional. Spoiler warning, it does not. It just makes the character look like a defensive heckler who's too insecure to play the scene straight. But the nail in the coffin happens when Velma discovers a literal murder victim, her classmate Brenda, and her first instinct is to make a dig about the girl's weight and her intelligence.
She has no brain!
This is where the asshole becomes the villain. In character psychology, there's a fundamental law regarding punching up versus punching down. We tolerate abrasive characters when they use their wit to punch up at the arrogant, the powerful, or just the utterly incompetent. When Velma looks at the mutilated corpse of a teenage girl and uses it as a punchline for a brainless joke, she is punching 6 feet under the dirt. The joke is a narrative flatline. Converting a schoolyard insult into a literal observation of a mutilated body provides zero insight and even less wit. It's the comedic equivalent of pointing at a fire and calling it hot. There is no clever subversion here, only the literal remains of a cliche that should have stayed buried. This is the moment Velma's debts have defaulted and the loan sharks come collecting. You've insulted the audience, and now you've shown them that your protagonist has the empathy of a brick without providing any of the entertainment value. In the very first 3 minutes, Velma has been more hateable than anything. Now let's take a look at an asshole who actually pays his bills to become lovable. Gregory House is an asshole. He's been called out multiple times in the show, yet he's also one of the most well-written and loved characters in all of television. Take the virgin pregnancy case. A woman swears she's a virgin despite being months pregnant. When she claims her fiance is a virgin too, House replies saying,
I believe him.
In 3 words, House achieves what Velma fails to do in 2 seasons. He's doing much more than just mocking the girl. He's performing an autopsy on the girl's lie. House basically just called the girl a cheater to her face. When she desperately asks if a toilet seat could be the culprit, House answers,
Absolutely. There would need to be a guy sitting between you and the toilet seat, but yes, absolutely.
The joke is cruel, yes, but it's functional. House is punching through a lie to reinforce his core philosophy. Everybody lies. The audience gets a 3-for-1 deposit, the dopamine hit of a laugh, the catharsis of watching a liar get dismantled, and the reinforcement of House's character. House weaponizes his cruelty to find the truth, while Velma uses hers to hide the fact that she has nothing to say. But the biggest difference between the humor humor of these two characters is the direction of the punch. House always punches up. He mocks Cuddy because she's his boss. He mocks his team because they doubt him. Even when he mocks a patient, like the woman who uses her inhaler as perfume, he isn't mocking her personhood. He's mocking the industrial-grade stupidity that is actively killing her. More importantly, House exists in an ecosystem of wit. Wilson, Foreman, Chase, Cameron, or any of the other characters in the show aren't merely his punching bags. They're characters who can and do clap back, unlike a dead body. They defend themselves with their own intellect, creating a high-velocity friction that makes the show enjoyable. House can dish it out, but his team can take it and return fire. That mutual respect is what separates funny banter from just plain old bullying.
Coronary disease or rejection.
Sorry. There's a reason they call it the whiteboard.
You want to give me that black marker?
Velma, on the other hand, exists in a comedic void. She mocks a dead body because it can't talk back. She bullies Fred because the writers decided he should be a pathetic caricature of a white guy. When the protagonist is the only person allowed to be smart in the room, it becomes less of a comedy and more of a hostage situation. At least that's how I felt when watching the show. You guys better subscribe and click on that stupid bell because I suffered through enough watching Velma to make this video. So if humor is the bribe, now we need a license. This is the narrative threshold that prevents a character from being a parasite and turns them into a symbiont. In human social dynamics, we have an innate, visceral resistance to arrogance. And there's a heavy social fee you're required to pay for the privilege of being a narcissistic asshole. The rule is simple. If you're going to act like a god, you better be able to perform miracles. If you don't, the tribe revolts. This is pillar 2, value. Most protagonists by nature are nice and are liked for who they are. A jerk is only tolerated for what they can provide. Usually, they have to provide twice as much as the normal character would just to justify their behavior. If the value you bring to the table is higher than the headache you cause, the audience stays. If not, you're an expense the viewer is looking to cut. And value comes in two flavors: social value and functional value, or simply status and skill. Sometimes the value isn't about what you can do, but who you are. This is social value or status. This is the license for characters who are fundamentally incompetent or just plain useless. They provide zero inherent hard skills, but they stay in the frame because their status provides a social utility the other characters and the audience might crave. Think BoJack Horseman, Pierce Hawthorne, and Mr. Satan. BoJack is a decaying relic of a 90s sitcom. He provides zero skill to any situation. Usually he just ruins them, but he provides value to his status as a star. In his world, fame is a currency. Characters tolerate his toxicity because his name acts as a social bridge, a gateway to a level of relevance they otherwise can't reach on their own. Pierce Hawthorne is an even better example. His value is tied entirely to the fact that he's a millionaire and the heir of the Hawthorne wife's fortune. That lifestyle grants him a level of prestige and influence that the rest of the Greendale study group simply doesn't have. Because of that wealth, people tolerate his offensive, often archaic behavior. He's less of a teammate and more of an asset you can't afford to liquidate. And then there's Mr. Satan. In Dragon Ball Z, he is an utterly incompetent fighter compared to the gods and aliens around him. But when Goku asks for the people of Earth to contribute their energy for a spirit bomb, the world says no. They don't trust some random disembodied voice. It's only when Mr. Satan, the world champion, steps in that the planet listens. He is the only one of the status to mobilize the masses, which indirectly saved the world. These characters are functionally useless, yes, yet socially indispensable. Think of it like a Rolex. In 2026, a Rolex provides zero functional value. Your phone tells the time better. Your Apple Watch has more features, but let's be honest, you don't use a Rolex to tell the time. You use it to flex on people. It tells the world you are a person of high value. Social value is so potent that fake rich influencers, those vultures trying to sell you a get-rich-quick course, will literally rent a Rolex for an Instagram shoot just to trick idiots into believing they have the status worth following. On the other hand, we have functional value. This is raw, unadulterated skill. Think of the uber competent characters in media or even real life. If there's only one doctor in the entire world who can save your life, you'll probably want him in the room no matter how much of a prick he is. Or in Gregory House's words,
What would you want? A doctor who holds your hand while you die, or a doctor who ignores you while you get better?
these are characters like Rick Sanchez, Jamie Lannister, and even Eric Cartman. Rick Sanchez is the smartest man in the universe. He casually invented interdimensional portal travel and treats reality like a playground. He treats the universe as a save file because to him, it is one. If the universe implodes or becomes uninhabitable again, he simply moves on to the next one. Jaime Lannister is a character that has both status and skill. He's a Lannister, for one, and was widely considered the best swordsman in Westeros, capable of acts that could influence the outcome of any battle. His arrogance is earned. When he leaves the regiment, the survival rate drops by 50%. He's earned the right to look down at you because he's the only thing standing between his allies and a shallow grave. And then there's Eric Cartman. He's not a genius or a fighter in a traditional sense, but hear me out. This is a child capable of manipulating Cthulhu, an eldritch god, into doing his bidding. This is the kid who orchestrated a horrendous feat, worse than Epstein. He made Scott Tenorman eat a bowl of chili made from his own parents. You'd rather have him as an ally than an enemy, because his competence at being evil is so high that the alternative is too terrifying to contemplate. These characters are the absolute best at what they do. They are completely, utterly irreplaceable to the people around them. They don't need you. It's quite the opposite. You need them. Now look at Velma. She's a socially awkward high schooler who is quite transparently a Mary Sue self-insert. In this iteration, she isn't even a detective yet. She has no prior cases or reputation to back up her ego. Social value is entirely out of the picture. The character is clearly aiming for functional value by trying to be the smartest person in the room, but that only works if the writers don't make everyone else in the room brain dead, like the average League player. But the writers forgot one important detail. They forgot that the audience is also in the room. In the pilot, Velma frequently jumps to incorrect conclusions and misdirects the investigation before the truth is revealed by other means. She accuses Sophie, she's wrong. She accuses Fred, she's wrong again. The show depicts her as a loudmouth guesser who happens to be the protagonist, not a reliable detective. It can't get worse than that, right? You can't fail harder at providing value than being just flat out wrong. Well, the writers of Velma somehow managed to find an even lower floor. What could possibly be worse than picking the wrong answer on a test? It's not picking one at all. In season 1, episode 4, the plot is entirely dedicated to Velma curating a social list of the hottest girls on campus. This happens while serial killers on the loose, mind you, having already claimed the third victim. Even if the killer is targeting hot girls, an actually competent protagonist will make a quick list and get back to investigating. Or better yet, use the next target as bait. Instead, Velma spends the entire episode obsessing over high school popularity rankings, while the active serial killer is barely mentioned. She is choosing narcissism over the one skill that will justify her presence. And then we have Dr. Gregory House, the undisputed gold standard for the jerk with value. House is the best diagnostic doctor in the world. He is so good, in fact, that even the CIA recruited him for a case once. Cuddy, the hospital director, physically cannot fire him because losing House means losing the hospital's only miracle worker. In the show, it's even explicitly stated that he's the last doctor you call when everyone else can't find out what's wrong with you. But no, House isn't always instantly correct. The show makes him earn the diagnosis instead of handing it to him on a silver platter. In the pilot, House actually misdiagnoses the patient. He nearly kills her with steroids. It's only after he sends Foreman and Cameron to break into the patient's home, something that happens quite often in the show, mind you, that he deduces there's a tapeworm in her brain. Look, you don't need a character to get the correct answer immediately. It's actually more satisfying for the audience to watch them earn it. In Velma, after she falsely accuses Sophie, she finds one flimsy clue that points her to Fred, someone the audience can already tell isn't the killer. The payoff is weak because it doesn't demonstrate any deductive intelligence. It just shows her failing in a new direction. With House, he saves a life and corrects his own potentially fatal mistake. Velma, on the other hand, is just accusing a new wrong suspect. If Velma were in House's position, the patient would have been dead by now. For the perfect example of House's functional value, just look at season 2, episode 9. House's team suspects a patient has Munchausen syndrome, which is faking illness for attention, especially after Cameron baits her into taking unnecessary antibiotics. While the team wants to discharge her, House suspects she actually has a legitimate illness on top of the Munchausen's. To keep her in the hospital for testing, House secretly gives the patient the option to take colchicine to mimic a life-threatening condition. It's an arrogant, dangerous move, but it leads to the discovery that the patient has a genuine infection being masked by Cushing's syndrome. It ends with House saving a life that even other competent doctors doctors were ready to throw away. We are finally getting to the final pillar, probably the most important one too, to actually making a jerk lovable: misery. Think of it as a tax that a character needs to pay for being a jerk. To make a jerk lovable, they have to pay up. No matter how useful or hilarious a jerk is, the human brain demands a blood sacrifice to balance the scales. The Buddhists called it karma. Psychologists call it the just world fallacy, that desperate, hardwired cognitive bias that assumes the universe actually gives a damn about cosmic justice, that we need to see people get what they fucking deserve. When writing a lovable jerk, misery is divided into two categories: external and internal. External misery are usually found in comedies or comic relief characters. Think King Julian or Zap Brannigan. Now these characters aren't miserable per se, they're usually more delusional or ecstatic, so the narrative has to extract the tax via the environment. We tolerate their arrogance because the universe is constantly slapping them in the mouth. They are the perpetual butt of the joke. We don't get mad at them for being jerk because they're already getting fucked by the rules of their world and sheer bad luck for our amusement. It's slapstick as a moral corrective. Then we have internal misery, found in more serious central characters. These characters are actually miserable. These are characters like Rick Sanchez and BoJack Horseman. We don't need the universe to punish these guys because they're already doing a better job of it themselves. They've paid the tax in advance. Their jerkiness is a symptom of a soul that's already rotting. It's hard to kick a man when he's down, and these characters live in the dirt. Hating them feels redundant. It's like hitting a kid. Usually easy, right? They're loud and annoying, but if you hate on a kid with cancer, you're the monster. Internal misery provides that same immunity. Look, I'm tired of talking about Velma, and you're tired of hearing about it, so let's perform the autopsy quickly. The writers tried to give her internal misery, but they're cowards. Her trauma is underdeveloped and toothless. Her being miserable is less like a cause of her acting like a jerk and more of a post-it note excuse the writer slapped on her to justify being a prick. Her mother's disappearance is supposed to be her wound, but it's treated more like a plot device. Her misery is often resolved episodically or sidelined for a quick gag. It just feels fake. She's the mean girl in high school who claims she has depression because she took one BuzzFeed quiz and uses it as an excuse to be a bitch to everyone else, when in reality, she's a rich girl from the suburbs crying because her parents bought her a Lexus instead of Lamborghini. There is no weight to her soul, so there's no reason to forgive her. On the opposite end, we have Gregory House, a man who is practically chemically dependent on his misery. Take away the misery and House stops becoming House. Just take a look at his character design. His leg is a constant reminder of his own hubris. He was given a choice: amputate the leg and live a pain-free life, or undergo a volatile experimental surgery to keep it. And because House is a narcissist who would rather risk death than be seen as broken or less than, he chose the pain. And he's been paying for that pride every second with a crippling Vicodin addiction that effectively amplified his jerk personality by at least 10 times. But the physical pain is just the entry fee. The real tax is his compulsive self-sabotage. House uses his intellect to push people away because he's terrified of emotional attachment. This is most apparent in his relationship with Lisa Cuddy. For 7 seasons, we watched them trade playful insults and have undeniable chemistry, only for House to cave the second things got real. When they finally date in season 7, the misery tax comes due in the most brutal way possible. When Cuddy has a cancer scare, House, the world's greatest doctor, is so terrified of human vulnerability that he can't even sit in the room with her unless he's high on Vicodin to numb the fear. He had been clean and decided to throw away his sobriety into a wood chipper because he was too emotionally stunted to face the possibility of losing her. That leads to the inevitable breakup. In the season finale, he tries to return a hairbrush and sees her moving on with her life at a dinner party, and in a moment of pure, unadulterated emotional rage, he drives his car to her dining room wall. It is a literal, violent metaphor for his entire existence. This is House at his most monstrous, but because we've seen him pay the tax for the entire series, it's like watching a metaphorical car wreck end with a literal one at the climax, and we've watched him earn every single bit of that wreckage. Okay, we spent this entire video breaking down the aspects asshole equation: humor, value, and misery. But there's one final question we haven't answered yet. Why do we even want to solve this equation in the first place? Why are we so drawn to these characters who by all logical accounts should repel us? Carl Jung believed we all have a shadow self, the basement of your psyche where you've locked away everything inappropriate. Emotions like anger, rage, selfishness, jealousy, hate, shame, guilt. Jung argued that one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. The Lovable Jerk is simply our shadow self projected onto a screen, a safe outlet for our most dangerous instincts. When House insults a moronic patient, he's vocalizing the intrusive thoughts that you're forced to swallow every time your incompetent coworker or teacher opens their mouth. When he chooses truth over compassion, he's prioritizing what we secretly wish we could prioritize. You play nice because you're polite, or maybe just a coward. House doesn't. He prioritizes a harsh truth over a comfortable lie, a trade-off we're all too terrified to attempt. When House drives a car through Cuddy's dining room, he's doing what we've all fantasized about but would never actually do. We've all wanted to burn our lives down rather than face our fears. The difference with House is that he actually does it. The Lovable Jerk works because they force us to look at the part of ourselves we've been taught to hide. They ask us to make the darkness conscious, and they don't ask us to be better. They ask us to be honest about who we already are, because in a world where everybody lies, the least you can do is stop lying to yourself.